We're diving into more Vikings Lions stats, facts, and recaps, and what the injury report says for guys like Andrew Booth, Harrison Smith, and Dalvin Cook. It's all coming up next on Superior Sports Talk.
KARE 11 sports anchor Reggie Wilson covers the Twin City sports scene non-stop. Luke Inman is ready to put him on the hot seat.
That's what you're gonna do to me?
Instant analysis,
Yanked. Out you go.
post-game breakdowns, and red-hot takes.
The Timberwolves need a stitch.
Reggie and Luke give you a daily dose of Minnesota sports with superior sports talk. Part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. And it starts now.
Back in the lab, Reggie and Luke back at another episode. Superior Sports Talk presented by Locked On Sports Minnesota, your daily 30-minute breakdown of everything Minnesota sports, which, by the way, you can now find streaming on your Roku or Amazon Fire Stick devices. So be sure to look out for our Locked On Sports Minnesota app there as well. That's Reggie Wilson on Twitter, at Reggie Wilson TV, and up on KARE 11. Reg, Tuesday today, week 3 in the NFL, already officially in the books, man.
Are you ready for London, my friend?
Let's hear it. Give me that British accent. Let's go. Let's hear it.
Oh,
You're due.
no,
You're
you
up.
don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear it. It's terrible. I don't want to embarrass anyone.
Here's the thing, Reg. I
we'll
set
keep
the
it
bar
moving.
pretty low a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. So I don't think it could be any worse than mine. Hey, lots to get into. But first, remember, follow along Locked On Minnesota YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a comment. And on Twitter, give us a follow at Locked On MIN. And remember, we're a podcast too, free and available, all platforms, Spotify, Apple, you name it, we got it. Tons of great choices over there. You got the Ron Johnson Show, the Football Party, and more. Your one-stop shop with endless Vikings talk with local experts. Do us a favor, hit the subscribe button and drop us a 5-star review. All right, to football we go. Dust is settled. Vikings, Lions. Vikings moved to 2-1 and tied with the Packers for the division lead. Bears, Lions right behind them both at 1-2. Reg, we got about halfway through our game recap yesterday, so let's pick up where we left off. But first, KOC spoke to the media Monday with updates on 3 big names. Andrew Booth Jr. is expected to be back in the mix this week, and Harrison Smith sounds like he's going to be a go versus the Saints coming out of that concussion protocol. Finally, Dalvin Cook, he's got that separated shoulder. Sounds like, though, he's already said he's willing to play. It's just a matter if the Vikings training staff will give him the green light. Let's start in the secondary, though. Those guys have been getting gashed up, man. 29th in the NFL in passing yards allowed. So it would be awfully prudent to get Harry and Booth back on the field in London.
Yeah, we talked to Andrew Booth last week, and he was just talking about how he felt like he was close. He felt like he was close to getting back. And look, they drafted him. Excuse me. They drafted him in the second round. He had a first-round grade because this guy is supposed to be a shutdown corner in the NFL. And look, his health is a big thing. If he can't stay healthy, then he can't even prove whether or not he can play or not. I think he has the game, coming into training camp, getting rowdy with his fellow teammates right out of the gate, picking off Kirk Cousins, all that stuff. Like, you see flashes of him being great. And I think, Patrick Peterson is not going to play forever. You like some things that Cam Dantzler does, but is he CB1? You look at a guy like Andrew Booth as a possible CB1 moving forward, but he's got to be available. And so what you hope is that, he pick himself back up from this hamstring injury, get out there and really show and prove what he's worth. But the secondary obviously needs the help. They play all this shell coverage, soft off the wide receivers. And on Sunday, the Lions just picked them apart. They were like, oh, okay, you guys are going to play off? Okay, we're just going to hit you underneath and yak you to death. That 4th and 5 to Amon-Ra St. Brown where he goes 30 yards, like, comes to mind. And so there were times where, DJ Shark getting open, doing his thing. There was a lot to be desired from that defensive secondary. They did tighten up down the stretch, but there were just times where you just saw, like, they need a little bit more juice. They need some oomph. And Andrew Booth Jr. coming back to the lineup would be necessary for them. How much he would play, though, in London, remains to be seen.
Yeah, yesterday on the football party, Sam asked me, hey, Luke, is this more on Donatel or is this more on the secondary as a whole? I said, well, Donatel certainly needs to make some adjustments for sure, but he just
Right.
might not have the right talent back in the secondary to run the schemes and coverage he wants to run. Remember, he comes from that Fangio defense. They run a lot of cover one. What does that mean? You put a safety in the box and you leave those corners out on the island. Donatel just might not have the confidence right now in these cornerbacks to be able to do that right now. So getting Booth and Harrison Smith back would be obviously huge. And then as far as Dalvin goes, where do you sit on this? Obviously not the same thing, but maybe on a smaller scale. Matt Hasselbeck was talking about Justin Herbert and how he played through the same rib injury instead of just taking the week off. And he said he wished he wouldn't have because it lingered the entire year after that. He was never the same. Connecting any dots here with Cook, especially when you got a backup like Madison, who we've seen carry the load plenty of times as a starter. Would you rather see them just sit Cook, get healthy, or is Cook just too special that when he's on the field, he can just change the game? You'll take him any way you can get him.
I think you just take him any way you can get him, because if you look at last season, when that injury happened, and this is kind of like a re-aggravation of that same injury, man, the dude put that harness on, and do you remember that game against the Steelers? Like, he looked all world. And it was just like, is he hurt or is he not? Like, this dude
He's
is
faking.
killing it.
He's faking.
I know. You know, some type of crazy injury ends up hitting Dalvin, it seems like, every year. And it's unfortunate. This injury, I don't know if there's a case where, you know, you're like, oh, get him healthy. It sucks that this happened in week 3, because now this is something that he's just going to have to manage and deal with throughout the rest of the year. What you are looking at is possibly a situation where, you know, last year he was just able to rest it and be okay. But it sounds like the dislocation was a little bit more prone to happen because of him not getting it addressed last off season with the labral tear and all that Tom Pelissero got into. And so I don't think there's a situation where he's necessarily healthy this year. And so if he feels like he's ready to go, he can throw that harness on. We've seen him last year doing the same thing and coming out and producing in big ways. That being said, like, you do have confidence in Alexander Madison. I'm looking at a couple games last year, looking at week 3. Madison led the team with 112 yards. Week 5, he led the team with 113 yards. A couple more times, he had 90 yards. Like, when he came in to spell Cook, he was solid. And, you know, you got numbers like last week with the 7 carries for 28 yards and a touchdown. Like, that's solid. But when he came in for actual, like, duty in place of Cook, he did his thing. And honestly, you look at Madison and he runs different. Someone at the game on Sunday was making a comparison that Madison runs a little bit more like Cook. Like, he's been behind him for a few years now. He kind of emulates Cook's running style. You know, Dalvin Cook is one of those running backs that, you know, he always falls forward. He always gets the extra yardage. And early on in his career, Madison, his, you know, center of gravity wasn't necessarily, you know, the same as Cook. But now you look at Madison, man, he's a beefy dude, man. Like, he's a big guy. And you see him kind of absorb some of that contact. You think about that touchdown run on Sunday, like, he went beast mode on that thing. And that's something that is kind of like an evolution of his game. And so, yes, Cook is an elite back in the NFL. You're talking about a top 5 back in the NFL, in my opinion. But the drop-off is not that drastic when you think of Cook to Madison, because Cook has really shown himself to be more than serviceable as a back in the NFL.
I think you rest him. I think you rest Cook. And the difference between the Steelers game versus where we're at now, the Steelers game was what, week 14, week 15? It was do or die time for the Vikings at that point. They needed those wins. It's so early. There's so much football left to be played. How many times during the summer did we sit here and look at PFF rankings, ESPN rankings, Vikings running back room, top 5 in the league, consensus, sometimes even number 2 or 3. And that's why you got these guys right now, 4th for the depth purposes, you mentioned it, Sunday, Madison, he's just running like he's hungry, like he's playing for a job, like he knew, like he heard all those rumors that he might get traded or that the writing's on the wall. He's a free agent this year. He looks like he's hungry and playing for a job. I say give him a crack at that this time and sprinkle a little bit of Kene Nwangu. Maybe Ty Chandler's active for the first time this year. I don't think there's any point in rushing Dalvin back at this point again because he is so special. And I'm sure if he played, he would still provide that spark in the offense. But there's so much football left to be played. Speaking of injury reports, the Saints awfully banged up too, man. Starting at the top with Jameis. Jameis is basically playing with like a broken back right now. Their offensive line, when healthy, they've got 4 first-round picks on that offensive line, but they're dinged up right now. They began the season with their third-string left tackle, James Hurst, starting. So keeping tabs on both teams' injury reports going to be a focal point kind of as we preview this game throughout the week. And speaking of offensive lines, the Vikings unit has been maybe the most consistent group. All offseason, we talked about Garrett Bradbury holding up. Well, I don't know about you, Reg. I haven't called Garrett Bradbury's name one time all season yet. And probably playing next to Ed Ingram certainly hasn't hurt so far. Ingram kind of been a bulldozer in the running game at times. Certainly plenty of growing pains still in the pass protection department. O'Neal and Ezra Cleveland, they've just been rock solid per usual. And Christian Darrisaw, man, oh man, good break. The hype was real. The hype was real. Trent Williams 2.0, maybe they weren't kidding. Sunday, Darrisaw lined up in 42 pass sets and allowed 0 pressures, according to PFF. I tweeted a video of him in a critical juncture of the game yesterday. 3 minutes left, needed a drive. Everyone knows you're passing. And he's just out there manhandling Aiden Hutchinson. Thoughts on the O-line for the Vikings thus far through 3 weeks?
Hey, looking good, man. Looking good. They ended up clearing the way for, between Dalvin and Madison, 100 yards rushing between the two of them, 2 touchdowns. When Dalvin scored his touchdown, he gave the ball to Ed Ingram to spike, and that was nice. That was a nice touch because Ingram has been very, very good in the run game. And you look at it too, Cousins was pressured quite a bit on Sunday. Only sacked once, though.
But only one sack? Yeah.
Yeah, only 1 sack. And he was, in the face of pressure, he delivered. And look, they gave him a clean enough pocket to work. He had a pressure in his face when he threw the game-winning, or what turned out to be the game-winning touchdown to KJ Osborne. He was standing in there, and he was a little bit more confident with the guys up front. We know, look, from the Philly game, when Kirk is rushed, when he's hurried, he's not playing well. He gets a little bit of some happy feet. His internal clock starts ticking. He's looking to check it down, and that's not efficient for this offense. They need him looking downfield and doing his thing. What's cool about it is he has the confidence, well, he should have the confidence in his offensive line to be able to just scan the field, survey his options, and do what he needs to do because they are largely keeping him clean. This is a stellar offensive line group from Darrisaw on over to O'Neal. You look at those guard spots with Cleveland and Ingram, and as the weeks are going on, they just seem to be picking up a little bit more steam. I think Ingram leaves a little bit to be desired in the pass blocking sector of his game, but he's just a rookie. And he's going against this NFL competition. So you expect him to get better and better as the weeks go along. But so far, so good for this line. And hopefully they can keep it up as the season goes along, especially, with you saying, look, haven't really said much about Bradbury. Bradbury's going to mess around, play himself into a new contract with the Vikings. How about that?
Ooh, how about that? Oh, man. Hey, you remember my bold prediction this summer about Ed Ingram? Do you remember what I threw down on the gauntlet? Do you remember what I threw on the table?
What was it?
Ed Ingram will be the starting right guard for the Vikings for the next 10 years. I knew he would start week 1. I knew we would never give it up. And I think he plays through that rookie contract. Obviously, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but still, have some fun with me here. He's going to play through that rookie contract. They're going to sign him to a long-term 4, 5, 6-year deal. And the rest is history, man. I think they found their right guard finally after a decade of searching. PFF, I don't treat it like gospel. Certainly, there's just a human element part of the game you just can't put on analytics and numbers. But it certainly is a part of the equation when it comes to assessing football play. Here's the PFF numbers on this offensive line. 4 of the 5 guys are in the top 20. And remember, there's about 75 players at each position. Darrisaw's 14th in the league at left tackle out of 70. Ezra Cleveland's 20th out of 73 guards. Garrett Bradbury's 6th out of 35 centers. 6th. Ingram, 43rd out of 73 guards. And O'Neal, 12th best right tackle out of 70 tackles in the NFL. All in all, through 3 weeks, pretty good. They've been a pleasant surprise for sure. Vikings fans know it's been over, again, a decade since maybe the Brett Favre run. Ed Ingram, I think the missing piece there, they finally nailed that in the second round. Other rookies, though, unfortunately, kind of been nowhere to be found. Asamoah, he's been a standout on special teams. That's a great sign for things to come, but you wonder when they'll get him maybe involved in the defense. Booth has been dinged up. We talked about that. And Lewis Cine, I just saw him on a milk carton, man, because he's a ghost. Can't beat out Can Bynum. That's one thing. That's okay. Not too worried about that. Can't beat out Josh Metellus. That's another. Cause for concern that Cine still isn't close to cracking the starting lineup, or they just taking a rookie along slowly. Where's your panic meter at with Lewis Cine?
So I'm trying not to panic right now. What's interesting is you draft Lewis Cine to possibly be the heir apparent to Harry. And when Harry is not playing, Cine is not playing. I don't think he had did he have a defensive snap?
I don't think so. Yeah, he had one versus Philly. I don't think he had any. Yeah.
Metellus played all 76 defensive snaps. Cine played 15 on special teams, but none on defense, according to Kevin Seifert.
Okay.
I'm not really sure what's going on. You know, they drafted this guy as probably the most, like, quote unquote NFL ready guy, plug and play. You know, him and Kyle Hamilton, 2 plug and play guys. You just put them right in there and they're ready to go for their defensive acumen. And, you know, that defense that Cine manned with Georgia, like, you just thought like, oh, okay, yeah, like, so many of those defensive guys ended up getting drafted, and you're like, these guys are ready-made for the NFL. And I don't know if he's just not getting the defense good enough, or if they're just like, look, we're just trying to make sure he's rock solid, but I don't really know what's going on. It's kind of puzzling, especially when you look at guys like, you know, Booth, Evans. You know, those are 2 defensive guys that they drafted that are getting snaps, but you're just like, no Cine, the first round guy. Like, I'm looking at him from the press box on Sunday. He's on the sideline with his helmet in his hand. And I'm just like, what's going on? He's drinking Gatorade on the sidelines. You know, stay ready, I guess. If you stay ready, you don't have to worry about getting ready. But it's puzzling. He's a first round. They, you know, pushed back 20 spots, and they felt like they hit a home run at the 32nd spot drafting him. But right now, it's just very little to show for it.
It's tough for me because I'm watching this run defense kind of get gashed by Jamal Williams. I'm sitting there thinking, man, Jordan Davis, that big monster, old school nose tackle, was sitting right there at number 12. You decide to trade back, get some extra picks. You draft a safety that apparently you didn't even really need between Cam Bynum, Harry, and even Josh Metellus. And Jordan Davis, man, he would have just looked so good next to Harrison Phillips and Dalvin Tomlinson right now. These are the things that go through my head as I sit alone on my couch and watch these games on Sunday. Vikes start packing their bags for London for their 3rd trip over the pond. Team is 2-0 already, looking for their 3rd straight victory versus the Saints. Set your alarm clock. Kickoff 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Interesting to note, by the way, it sounds like the Saints, they're leaving today. We're recording this on a Tuesday. They're leaving, and they're heading out to London today to get adjusted to the body clock and the time difference and everything else. Vikings aren't leaving until Friday, I believe. Seems really late, but interesting just to see the 2 different approaches when it comes to kind of game planning for this trip over the pond out to London. Plenty more Vikings and NFL talk to get into. Next, we're getting into our Gimme One segment. But first, Vikings moved to 22-1 to win the Super Bowl after that victory over the Lions. You can check those odds out and more with BetOnline, betonline.net. fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Stats, news, and info. You want it, they got it. BetOnline makes betting easy and is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Go to betonline.net today to learn more. That's betonline.net. It's where the game starts. And remember, when you subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota, you're getting endless Vikings talk with local experts. Sam and Ron talk football every day in the Ron Johnson Show. Reggie Wilson gives you a sports anchor's perspective right here on Superior Sports Talk. And the Minnesota Football Party brings together the top Vikings podcasters in the city. Subscribe to the free Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast feed wherever you find your podcast. Drop us a 5-star review or find our videos on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. All right. Time has come. New favorite segments here called Gimme One. Gimme One. First one up, Reg. Give me one injury that's most devastating to their team as we go around the NFL. Chargers left tackle stud Rashawn Slater, torn bicep. He's out for the season. 49ers, maybe the #1 offensive tackle in the league, Trent Williams. He's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. Mac Jones, Patriots quarterback. He's got a high ankle sprain. He's out probably 4 weeks minimum. And Sterling Shepard, I don't know if you caught it right at the end of Monday Night Football last night. Turf Monster got him out at MetLife. He could be dealing with a serious knee injury. So weird, man. He's probably likely done for the season. We'll find out later today. What's most devastating? Give me one.
So when you talk about injury history, I think the most devastating is Sterling Shepard. Like he was done running his route, and it looks like he's just kind of easing up, and I don't even understand. Like he didn't even seem to be going at any type of speed. Like he was done with the route, and he was kind of just like jogging. I don't know if he just planted wrong, and like that thing snapped. Like it just looked like classic like ACL type injury, similar to like what happened to OBJ in the Super Bowl. But OBJ was actually like running full speed. Sterling Shepard wasn't. That was tough. He's wide receiver 1 for them. That's a brutal injury for him. And you start to wonder, how much longer is he going to be a Giant after this? Honestly, you have cause for concern for all of these. Justin Herbert is already hurt, and now he loses his left tackle, like the guy protecting his blind side, the guy that's protecting the guy that's going to be coming to hit more of those ribs. And then Trent Williams also protecting Jimmy G's blind side. Like they already lost their first quarterback. They don't need to lose the other one. I mean, Jimmy G is back there so flustered. He's running out of the end zone like Dan Orlovsky. But I think if you had to pick one, because this is give me one, it has to be Mac Jones. He's the starting quarterback. Anytime you don't have your quarterback, it's a problem. Like the Patriots are already doing like just a mashup of whatever they're doing on offense. Whoever's calling plays, Matt Patricia, weird. He's been a defensive guy his whole career, and now all of a sudden he's calling their offensive plays. I don't know. But you look at the offense, and they seem to be finding some type of a rhythm with Mac and Cheese. But he looked in so much pain, like hobbling over to the sideline. And, those high ankle sprains are tough, man.
No, they're no
like
joke.
You said, 4 to 6. Yeah, 4 to 6 minimum, because it's just it's hard to walk, hard to plant, and he needs to do that he's not the guy with the strongest arm, so he needs his legs to be like intact if he's going to really like push and power the ball to his receivers. And you look behind him and you're thinking about a guy like Brian Hoyer, and you're just like, look, he's been serviceable in this league, but if you're talking about him having to start any number of games while they're trying to keep up with the Dolphins in the division and possibly, a wild card spot, you don't want to lose your starting quarterback. So if I had to do one, it's Mac and Cheese.
Mac and cheese is the right answer. That's correct, because you're right. It's the quarterback, most important position, not just in the NFL, but in sports. But I got to mention Rashawn Slater. Chargers, huge expectations going into this season. They're already 1-2. Herbert's already dinged up, so he needs that clean pocket and protection. Rashawn Slater, he's already become one of the best left tackles in the league. Now he's out for the entire season, and they do not have a lot of great depth behind him. That's a tough, brutal injury. They're already 1-2, brutal division. You lose a stud like that for Justin Herbert, and a running game that with Austin Eckler just really hasn't looked the same yet this season like it did last year. Most brutal injuries of the week. Trent Williams obviously up there as well, but that one's tough. All right, next one up. Give me one. Give me one coach on the hot seat already through 3 weeks. You made fun of me because I said Josh McDaniels, but now he's 0-3. He's got the Broncos and Chiefs coming up. They may be 0-5, and I know they just hired him, but Josh McDaniels could be a candidate for one and done. Is there another coach maybe on the hot seat too?
Yeah, I'm not worried about Josh McDaniels. Like, they're going to give him like a considerable leash. You know, it's interesting because so many of these teams that were 2-loss or, winless, they did win. I don't know. Lovie Smith just didn't necessarily always feel like a guy that was secure to me, with the Texans, but I think they're going to give him a chance to not be one and done. I think it's trifling. Okay, I'll go there. I think it's trifling for these teams to make a coach one and done. Like, unless it's just an abject disaster, a la Herb down in Jacksonville. Like,
Yep.
you got to give them some time. And look,
You got to be patient. You got to commit to the process here for a little bit.
Yeah, they've made a considerable investment with Josh McDaniels. Bringing the GM over. The GM is new. He hired his guy, which was Josh McDaniels. They're going to stick that thing out. They got enough talent on that Las Vegas roster where you think they'll turn it around. That's a rough division, but if they can get one win to kind of just like break the seal a little bit, I think they'll be able to kind of rebound a little bit and make something out of their season. The one team and one coach for me where you're just like, I don't know. And it's probably a little left field to you. Riverboat
River Ron over in Washtown, huh?
Yeah, I don't know about them, man. Like, they've had these quarterback issues since Ron has gotten there, and that's tough. He's been winning with guys like Taylor Heineke and, Ryan Fitzpatrick. They tried to do it last year, and, now they got Carson Wentz, and the guy got sacked 8 times on Sunday, like, just brutal. Some of the whispers that I'm getting from people that I follow in Washington is that, maybe it's not working with their offensive coordinator, Scott Turner, but Ron is a loyal guy, and he's just going to continue to stick with his people. Maybe that offense, maybe that scheme is not necessarily up to snuff when it comes to all of the other, nuanced systems in the NFL. And he's sticking with them for better or for worse. They looked awful on Sunday, and they're now 1-2. And I'm just not sure if I can trust those guys. And if this thing kind of comes off the rails a little bit, maybe you're talking about Ron Rivera being on the hot seat a little bit more. I like Riverboat. Like, I'm a fan. Like, I think he's a great football coach, a great leader out there. But I just don't know, man. It's a little scary hours right now.
That division's very interesting too, because every year it's a different division winner for the last 17 years. That's an NFL record. So you just think any year this could be Washington's year, maybe this year, but so far no good. I keep going back to Matt Rule. Listen, there's a lot of teams that are 1-2, but some teams are clearly more competitive than others. And Carolina Panthers, they may have stole one win, but they just don't look very competitive right now. Again, maybe it's because Baker got in slow to camp. He's still digesting the playbook. Or maybe it's just because they're just not very good. I don't know. I'm keeping my eyes on Matt Rule. All right, that's a wrap today. Back tomorrow breaking down more Vikings, NFL, and more. Remember, you got to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Join us every day for another episode with your 30-minute breakdown of everything Minnesota sports. We're a podcast too, free and available, all platforms. Subscribe, drop us a 5-star review, and leave us a comment. That's the man, Reggie Wilson, on Twitter, at Reggie Wilson TV, and up on KARE11. Check him out every night. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter, at Luke_Spinman. Special thanks to our producer, Matt DeBritz. Tune in tomorrow to Superior Sports Talk, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. For Reggie, I'm Luke. Until tomorrow, signing out.
Be blessed. Spread love today.